Hi, everyone. We're back and live for Arden's Chats. This is a segment that I do every week to really introduce you all to people I know, people I believe that are offering really great value to business owners in particular, but also to just people, because we're all operating in a wild, wild world. And that's what Definita is about, defining you in a cluttered marketplace. And right now, the world feels cluttered, especially I feel like in the States, like stuff is just nuts. I'm going to Europe in a couple months and I'm just like, maybe life will be different over there. And guys, I might not come back.
I want to go with you.
You can come. You can come. Okay. So this is Lisa. Lisa Allen. I've known Lisa a very long time, and I love our ebbs and flows of our relationship. Like nothing negative, just like as with women, we and busy women, you ebb and flow into each other's lives. And I think it's beautiful because our relationship is rooted in Christ. And I think that's so cool that when you're rooted in Christ, man, in woman, you get to do everything. You get to do life together in a different way. So Lisa.
Hey, everybody. I'm so good. You know, that also makes me think, Arden, is it's important when you sense a relationship, you just can't get to it. It's life and it's normal, but we always stay positive and open because that way you can always go back to it.
Yeah.
That's why we never, you know what I mean? That's why it's so easy to go back because we have a good foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lisa, who are you?
I am Lisa Allen. I am LJ Allen Coaching, your confidence coach. And I've been coaching for over a decade, but I like to really help women identify areas that they can grow in confidence. So the first thing I want to tell you, Arden, because I think we make presumptions as soon as we see somebody. So first of all, we didn't plan to both wear pink today, but I love it. I love that we match. I am not confident all the time. I think people see us doing our thing, whether it's teaching Pilates, coaching, speaking, all that stuff that I do, and they make an assumption that I'm always confident, and I'm not. I'm not. And it ebbs and flows, and that's why I'm so passionate about being authentic and helping other women identify. You know, in coaching, we have basically 7 areas of confidence. And this is life coaching. This is anything, right? This is anything. Right. They are spiritual. Okay. They're relational, financial, your career. Let's see, that's number 4. Physical, mental health. You know, that's kind of combined. Lifestyle and balance. This deals with how cluttered is your mind, how cluttered is your phone, how cluttered is your calendar, and leisure, hobbies and leisure. You know, and so you can be really, really confident in one area financially, right? But yet your relationships, you're never seeing your friends, or you have a desire to date more, or whatever it is. And so I think awareness is a big thing.
I love that. So I told her before, we've got our list of things we're going to talk about, but I'm going to set it up with one of the things I'm challenging myself to do, which is why I'm doing Arden's Chats, is to be more vulnerable, forward facing, not in a woe is me or, oh my God, everyone pay attention to me, but as I'm growing as a speaker and as I'm growing as a presenter, I think the beauty of who I am created to be, who I'm created to be in God, is I look a certain way everywhere I go. And everyone absolutely, positively believes that she's got it going on all the time, which leads to very few people reaching out to me and ever saying, hey, girl, you okay? Hey, can we hang out? And that is a sticky point for me. That is a vulnerability point of me that people don't reach out to me. I have to reach out to them. I constantly have to pursue relationships, and it gets exhausting. So I'm really trying to go, listen, we're bringing people together and building community again together, because I'm tired. I'm tired of consistently having to do the work and not having it done in return. And that is where I am right now. And that's also where I'm lacking confidence, is where I just told you, I was like, we got to get into this, because confidence looks different for everyone. And just because it is my job to portray confidence, I am a publicist. I put people in front of I put everyone in the right rooms all the time.
Mm.
But what does it look like for a person like me if I was coming to you, because you are a coach?
Yes.
And you were like, do you want to do some coaching? And I was like,
yeah.
Let's do some to show people how to work with you. And just so you know, our dear friend Jen Gibson is watching in the sidelines. She doesn't want me to put her on, so I'm not going to put her on. But she's so cute.
Hi, Jen.
We can't hear you. You'll have to text me, Jen, because we can't hear you because you're in the.
I love it.
She's so cute, y'all. Like when I tell you a woman who's killing it, that's her. She's
hey,
still talking. I can't
absolutely.
So okay, what would you say?
Here's first thing. I have 2 comments about that. First of all, I love that you had said like you dress to show up the way you want to. And you know, one of the things that I feel a confident woman is she's comfortable in her own skin. And so what that means is your design, your wiring, your personality. That's one of my biggest passions. I am certified in, Enneagram, Strengths Finders, DISC, all of it, values. And it's because we have to feel comfortable with what's in us and what's been left out of us. Because what's left out of us is what creates needs in relationships and self-awareness. So, but also if you need to dye your hair for confidence. If you feel good, like I always say, if I am well spackled and have a good pair of shoes, I can rock the whole world. Maybe it's Botox, maybe it's fitness. You need your workout, so here's a couple of things I've asked friends, here's some things that they've said makes them feel confident. Dancing in the mirror, dressing in clothes that are my style. Yeah. Oh, I love this one. Unconditional love from my dogs.
Oh,
love this. Getting compliments on things that I've done. This is random. High-waisted pants and a pair of heels. If that's what you need, girl, rock the high-waisted pants. Getting cute for myself.
Yeah.
Love being creative. So my challenge would be for you, Arden, and everybody that's listening, what makes you feel confident?
Right.
A lot, just like I would say, I want to be, scrubbed up and spackled. Somebody else says, I want to be natural. I don't want to feel weighed down by makeup and lash extensions. Do you, boo? That's what confidence is. The second thing that I heard you say, Arden, is because you come off as a confident woman. You didn't say this, but I perceive that it might feel like people don't think you need anything.
Right.
And if that's true, then you're not being checked on. And so I would say for your important relationships from a coaching perspective, I would try to design for you to have a direct conversation and say to Susie, maybe your best friend, not really Susie, whoever she is, and say, look, I need you checking on me. Right now, I'm going to be vulnerable with you, and I'm going to tell you that this is something in this season of life that I need.
Yeah.
And so I would challenge you to find 2 or 3 really good friends who do love you, who know you're not being high maintenance. You're actually being courageous because you're expressing a need.
Yes. I love that. So that's what Lisa does, guys. And we're going to talk about all the different things. And here's our friend that we love. And I mentioned her earlier. Talk about Jen. How are you? Jen's out in Nashville, so.
I have no idea who's all on this. So I'm sitting here, and speaking of Lisa talking about what you look like, I'm sitting here at my desk where no one normally sees me, and I've got a headband in, I've got workout clothes on. So I'm not looking my best. I hope there's not a lot of people that can see this right now.
Jen, I have memories of you and I having coffee, and you always came in sparkling from the inside out, fresh faced right from a workout, and you always slayed it. So
gorgeous. Well, that's very sweet of you. When she said you could join, because I wanted to be able to see you, Lisa, and talk to you. So it's like I gotta come out from outside. Yes.
So Jen, this is my new talk show, if you will. It's called Arden's Chats. And what I'm doing is every week is people come in and we talk about things with business. And Jen is the queen of business and the queen of confidence. And Lisa is here today. So we're talking about confidence. And I'm doing just really wanting to hear what Lisa does. So Lisa, tell us, give me some of your background. How did you really get into, because confidence coaching doesn't sound like, truthfully, if I'm like a viable listen, is that a viable career? Right? Like,
Yeah.
do you go around like, okay, I'm your confidence coach? Just like somebody who tells me, oh, I'm a publicist. And I'm like, oh, what rock stars do you represent? And I'm like,
different kind of public.
so many people in business. So what does a confidence coach do?
So first of all, confidence coaching is really mindset coaching, right? It really, any kind of coaching is mindset coaching. And confidence also doesn't mean that you're not confident. In fact, every woman that I coach is already confident. But life happens and we don't know what's happening next. And so we get thrown curveballs all the time. And it's how to remain confident in those curveballs, in quitting something, in starting something new. I love Mel Robbins is a popular coach I follow. And she says the definition of confidence is being willing to try. And so, Jen, you and I have lost parents, and what we have done that created confidence is putting one foot in front of the other, moving forward. That's what confidence is. Confidence is being willing to keep moving, until you're told specifically in your gut to put something down. And that's what you do, Arden, every single day in your business. You keep moving. You put one foot in front of the other. And so that's really what mindset do I need to change or adopt in order to face what life has brought to me in this season.
So as we talk about that, and I mean, Jen, feel free to join in because you work with a lot of people in business too, women and men in business. So when we talk about mindset, what does that mean? Like, how do I change my mindset? Because that's one thing I've honestly, even this morning, or like even talking when I was telling you, I feel like I'm in a losing season. And so everyone knows I love basketball. And so when you get on a losing streak, it is very, very difficult to switch that because you consistently, especially if it's a last minute loss, right? Like football, basketball, whatever it is, when you're losing at the last minute, you consistently, your brain starts to go, this ain't gonna work out again. They're gonna come back again. They're gonna get it again. And I'm literally going through, okay, I need to do something different, but everything I've done in the past to switch my mindset is not working. Right. And I think and this is the energy in the world right now. I have so many people coming to me and saying, I'm losing. I just keep losing. Yeah. What's one thing that we could do with our mindset or to shift it to go, it might be you might have lost the game, but there's still more to play.
Yeah. Well, I would say the first thing is we have to redefine and reinvent our definition of loss. Because losing, and I'm not saying you still have to have goals, you still have to have financial goals, you still want your business to succeed. I'm not saying that. But when you say I'm in a losing, you have to redefine, what is winning? What is winning? I teach randomly, and Jen, you'll laugh knowing me the way you do, but I've started teaching Pilates. And that's a very weak area for me. I'm not a good physical fitness person, but I've learned over the last 7 years to really focus on my health and got strong enough and did it. And now I'm teaching it. But one of the things I like to say to my class, because sometimes I work them hard and they grunt and they groan and everything, I say, we got here ourselves. We have the privilege of working our bodies hard. There are so many people that would give anything. And so I think the perspective of where have you won, Arden? That to me, and where are you winning every day when you get up and you keep going? You win just because you admitted that vulnerably. Yeah. That's winning. You are releasing people on this video today to be vulnerable and admit loss themselves.
Yeah. So guys, that's one thing. I love that. So I'm going to reiterate that. If you didn't get that, and I look at it from another perspective, because, I work with a lot of IV hydration businesses, a lot of small businesses, they're going in, they're wanting that big partnership that they're like, this one would cover my month, right? Like a lot of times small businesses starting up, you're just trying to cover that month. That would cover my month. And you don't get it. I also have them, and I do this the same with me. I look at that's protection. That's protection because something wasn't going to go right with you. If you're living in the spirit, if you're living in a place of I'm living out every day for what I'm supposed to do in the world, that's protection because something else is coming. And I like you can reframe it that way too. Like this might feel like a loss, but here's the win next week. the next day.
Arden, I love this because, we are women of faith. And so
Yeah.
one things I love is I love and I believe that if God has ended something in your life or closed a door in your life,
Mhm.
it's not because he wants to just say, ha ha, let's watch her squirm. It's because something better is ahead, something better for you. It might not be the way you define your win,
Yeah.
because for my life, God gets to define that, but he is always looking to do what's best for his kids. And so to me, being able to see, even if you're not a woman of faith, being able to really truly believe that mindset, the
Mhm.
growth mindset versus the limited mindset, that there is something better. I believe it. The other thing that a couple really important things that I believe that what you said, first of all, a confident woman takes responsibility for what happens to her in her life.
Ooh.
And
Mm.
so she chooses, you cannot help what happens in your life. You can only choose your response to it. And one of my favorite coaching questions, I have two clients right now that are walking through some major loss, is what story do you want to tell about this in a year? So, in other words, you can't choose what happened, but you can choose how do I want my part of this story to play out? How do I want to behave? How do I want to respond? And how do I want to react? Because that's the only thing that we can really control.
Yeah. Jen, what do you think about all of this? You're taking some
Well,
good notes.
I am, and I love that you shared that, Lisa, because I think sometimes I completely agree. Taking responsibility in your own life is what you do have control over. Um, what I was thinking about when you said that was the move that I made to Nashville. And it was at a time in my life that was so dark.
Mhm.
And I was leaving Charlotte, where I had lived for 24 years. My entire base of connections, my way to make a living, my friends, my everything, my family was all there. Um, and then to lose both of my parents in such a short window, to move here, which to this day I know was the right thing to do. And I don't regret it, but it was a very dark time. And one of the things I was thinking about when you said that, Lisa, was, gosh, for months, I mean, months, it had to be, no joke, ladies, 6 to 9 months of getting up in the morning and sitting on my front porch and just staring at the sky and trying to figure out where my life was going. And that was something that I really had to get a grasp on, because I had never been at that place. At that time,
Oh gosh.
if I'm 50 now, I was 46. I moved here 4 years ago, May 1st.
Wow.
And so to be 46, and I had always thought I had it together, and then to sit there and feel really lost in a lot of things. Sometimes you just have to sit in it. And that's okay. And that is not a bad thing. And I really learned that going through my grief counseling as well.
Yeah.
And when you sit in it doesn't mean that you're giving up. It's finding the way.
Yes.
And eventually I found that way. But I think that I had a lot of moments where I was the only one responsible for getting myself out of bed. And I was the only one that was going to be mentally responsible if it was a good or a bad day. And a lot of them were bad days. And as much as I tried to make them good, they couldn't be.
Yeah.
And I just had to work through a lot of different things. But when I was able to come out on the other side, you really do have an appreciation for being able to kind of get through those times. And I feel like for me personally, being in that also played a huge role in me being able to come back. and come back in the way I did, to a career that I loved and I missed.
Yeah.
But I needed to sit in it to realize how much I missed it. But I also knew when I came back, it needed to be different.
Mm.
And so I think there were a lot of things that I could feel it in my psyche when I was starting to come out of it, and I could see the way I just started to act. I could see it in my posture when I walked.
Yeah.
It was all different things, and so it took a little bit of time, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that is, and with my stepkids, I have 4 stepkids that are all grown here in Nashville, and that's one of the things that I really try to talk to them a lot about as well, because we live in a time now where I think, especially this younger generation, thinks things are going to just be handed to them. They're going to automatically get 6-figure jobs when they're 21 or 22 years old. That's crazy to me, but a lot of people think like that. And but at the end of the day, you're the only one that can make it happen day in and day out. And it's in your personal life and in your professional life, in your if you have a faith, in your walk with your faith. At the end of the day, it all falls squarely on you.
Yeah. I love Jen. So first, I'm sorry, Arden, go ahead.
No, I was getting ready to say, and I do think Jen and I are very similar in that I'm still single, but we're single for a very long time in our life. So our parents are our source, right?
Right.
And Lisa has her dad lived for a very long time and like had very close relationships. And, I talked to Lisa a little bit about like grieving my dog. Like,
yes.
He was a freaking family member that I didn't realize how much of a family member he was. And like having that confidence, because here's the thing about it, like people watching this later too, you're not given permission to grieve like we think we're given permission to grieve.
Right.
People want you. I remember my mom talking about her dad's death, that she grieved him every day for 9 months. And the only reason she stopped was because my dad's dad died and she had to then take care of him. Like, we're not told that we're allowed to sit in our grief as much as we want to. Yeah. And like losing a dog is like, oh my God, it's just a dog. You can get another one. You're like,
no,
like, he was this person for me. Right. And like I think that's and we're in a very grieving, and I'd like to lean into that a little bit more, just thinking about like where we are as a nation, that I can't even watch what happened in Nashville because one of the little girls has the same name as my niece. And I'm like bawling, and there's no safe space to go because everyone's like, God, everyone has an opinion and none of them we're just sad. And did I tell you this, Lisa, in church a couple weeks ago? Oh, I said it last week. In church, we were talking about anxiety and depression. And they were saying most of our anger is actually rooted in grief.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of our lack of confidence is. We as women, especially strong women, are told, you got to get
bite your bottom lip, stiff upper lip, push forward.
Y'all got kids. Y'all got stuff to do. You got a job to take care of. You're like, how does a confident woman, because I'm looking at your nose. One of the things you told me is a confident woman grieves. You didn't say knows how to grieve. She grieves. She lets her scars change her for better.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay. So I follow a leadership guru, Carey Nieuwhof, and he had a quote a few years ago that just slayed me. And he said, life is a series. I think he said ministry is a series of ungrieved losses. And if we don't learn to grieve them, they stack up. And then we implode, right? With burnout, we act out. We either burn out, we act out, we live out. And so for me, I found this article on scars, and I just want to read you something about it. So I had a C-section with Kelsey. And I remember as my scar was healing, at first I was super protective of it, right? Like every time I sneezed, every time I laughed, all that kind of stuff. And then it started to heal. Well, there's a word that we in the English language think is a negative, and that word is callous. If I said to you, Arden, Jen, you're callous, that means you're cold and unfeeling.
Right.
But your body has to create a callus and over a wound. And what that means is it literally, the Latin of the word callus is hard skinned. And
Yeah.
your body knows as it heals, that tender, tender, tender place can withstand normal things as it heals. But the day that I came home from the hospital with that baby, and for weeks afterward, I couldn't sneeze the same way. I had to attend. I get mad at my dad for making me laugh. He was the funniest person in the world. And yet I was like, don't make me laugh, Dad. So anyways, this article says, when after a burn or cut, the body immediately begins its own remarkable campaign of rebuilding. During this process, the wound begins to fill with fresh healing material. And so we need to allow that in our mental and emotional lives as we grieve. If it's betrayal of a friend or a marriage partner, if it's disappointments, like have y'all not had a disappointment already by the morning, right?
Yeah.
There are so many things, and then we face the politics, and we face the trauma
Yeah.
that we're facing right now. And I love that as women of faith, the book of Psalms is filled with what's called lament.
Mm-hmm.
And lament, there's a whole book in the Bible, Lamentations, based
Yeah.
on lamenting. And that is a matter of grieving, stating openly where you're hurting and why you're hurting. And Jen, I love you said, so first of all, you pulled in a grief counselor. This is a time, the heavier the grief, the longer time you're going to need to heal from that grief.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so, and the more compounded that grief, you also had compounded grief, Jen.
Yes.
And so I would say to anybody listening, this is a good time to pull in a counselor. And really let someone else help you carry that load a little bit. If it's not as heavy, I coach people going through grieving, not necessarily like a counselor does, but just a new perspective for what does a loss make possible? Because a loss always makes something possible. It always makes something possible. You just don't maybe know it yet.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about that because when Rudolph died, Jen, I'm thinking about you because I had some of my dear clients are in Franklin and they have puppies, Frenchies, and it's Dina and Paige. And Dina wrote a book about anxiety and about Ruby and why is Ruby barking? And we were going through all the things, and it was them, like my client and her partner, that really gave me permission to go, like, girl, you have got to grieve. Like, you've got to, and here's why, because Dina had been through a similar process, actually, that you, Jen, had gone through. And she's like, when I didn't, I just kept going. And I think I had to almost, like V talks about, borrow confidence. I had to borrow Dina's confidence. And I think that's really, I love this, that guys and girls, ladies that are watching, if you're a business owner, and especially when you're in the day-to-day, I do think it's harder. It's just harder because you feel like I don't have space for me. But when you don't have space for you, when you don't do like Jen and take time to look at the sky, or if you don't think about talking to other people, it just compounds. So that's a beautiful way for confidence to come in. So let's, what else? What for the regular person? Like, grief is so heavy right now. And I don't, like, in a week, unfortunately, things are going to change. We're not going to remember what's next. Like, how do I
here's another
my own skin? Here's one thing, because I did bring this up today. I am going through working with a naturopath, so I'm not getting Botox, and I'm so embarrassed to be on screen because my lines are everywhere. How do I get confident? Jen, I'm telling you, you haven't seen me in a while. I got old.
And I got older. Jen.
So how do we get comfortable with our own skin, Lisa?
Well, I think being realistic, and again, defining the win. So, for example, I I showed a client this the other day. I hope she's not scarred for life, but I have officially, with my Pilates workouts, officially achieved six pack abs, but they don't look anything like the swimsuit issue because they're 59-year-old six packs. They're blumpily. You know what I mean? They're like bloop, 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 but they're there.
They're there.
Okay. If I expected them to be different, I am never going to be proud and confident for the work that I've done physically, you know? And so being realistic, and this society, you know, we give our confidence away every time we scroll and compare. We give our confidence away. And so we need to have the confidence either just to turn your camera off. Like if you can't look at yourself, I knew somebody that was like going through a season where she wanted, her confidence was she just pasted a little Post-it note over herself so that she didn't have constantly be drawn to looking at herself, you know? And so I feel like, what do you need to be realistically confident? And then there's always a counterbalance to that too. You know, I might have blumpily six pack abs right now, but I also have 59 years of experience.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And so that's what I would say. What can you see when you look at that forehead of yours? You know, I see a businesswoman who has really done this and really thought through strategy and business plans. Do you know what I mean? I would turn it around and say, what's not what's not there, but what is there? Okay. That's how you got it.
I love that. I love that.
The other thing is I think I'm a big proponent that we can become more confident when we take the focus off ourselves and put it on someone else. Yep. And so like one of my favorite games that I play when I travel is I will challenge myself to authentically compliment as many women as I can find on my trip. And that's the person that serves me my Starbucks. I can't tell you how many nails I've complimented because they were so beautiful. And what that means is a confident woman makes room for other women.
Yes, they do.
They make room. And so it could just be a quick conversation. It could be, I'm going to mention you when you're not here. And that might be what, you know, people could do for you, Arden, is I'm going to mention Arden because she is a PR coach. I might not need the PR coach. That's what we do for one another. I make room for other women, and that makes me feel stronger, even though it feels like the opposite, but I promise you it works.
And I'll jump in on that because I will tell you, the more I go inward and I'm like, they're not calling me. Why are they leaving me out? Like, and this is I talked about this with someone. I was like, a lot of it is a trigger from childhood, right? Like we talk about childhood wounds a lot. Like I remember there was these two little girls in third grade that when the other one wasn't at school, they would pay attention to me. But if both of them were there, I would not have a friend. And so that's a trigger that comes up. But the more I go in and like, nobody's calling me, I become more and more and more negative. And y'all, truth, I'm exaggerating this a lot, but I'm not that desperate. But I also think we all have that inner voice that's telling you, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough. And there's a reason for it, but there's also a solution for it. I love that. Pouring into other people.
Can I also say, because I have you, Jen, on this call, and I have you, Arden, you are two women that consistently do this. I have been the benefit of both of your professional investment, personal investment, spiritual investment. So I see you doing this. I see you making room for other women. And I've been one of the women that you've made room for. And I'm grateful for that.
Thank you. Well, I think it's
I love that.
Yeah, it's part of our core value is like Jen and I get to know a lot of people, and we get to connect so many cool people, right? Like that's
generous. That's generous. That's an abundant mindset.
Yeah.
Remember, the generosity is an abundant mindset, not a scarcity. So when you refer me to the networking group, or when you refer me, Jen, for a speaking engagement or coaching appointment, you're giving away saying there's plenty for me. I don't have to hold on to anything because there's plenty. That's an abundant mindset.
Yeah. Lisa, I always tell my husband, if the good Lord were to take me away anytime soon, get a hold of Lisa Allen first thing.
Oh.
Lisa's always the first person, and Lisa needs to be the one speaking at my funeral.
Well, God willing, it will be 100 years from now.
That's
and
right.
They'll
Exactly.
wheel me in.
Yeah.
And that's so funny. Like, I love when you mentioned that, because I actually just texted you, Jen, because I was like, oh God, there's somebody in Nashville who's coming in, who's there once a week that I need to introduce you to, that like y'all should connect. I don't know how. And that's the other thing. I think we as women or as business owners, we often think you have to have a reason to introduce someone. Yeah. I think there's this part of owning business. Like, I don't know why you're supposed to meet. I just know you are. So I'm going to make a warm introduction, go forth and prosper. And just by mentioning people, putting other people in the room, you grow this big network, and you get to be, and being open and honest to it. Like, honestly, I didn't want to cook. Last Friday, I'd been in my apartment all day, and I went downstairs and I was like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to get a club sandwich because that's what I was wanting to eat. And this guy comes down who's in my building. I see him all the time. And he's like, I know you. We start talking. There was a proposal for the Mecklenburg County that I would be perfect for, and no one had submitted for. And I'm historically I'm an underutilized business. And he was like, submit the thing. That's the other thing, business owners, like, be present and be open. So don't be out crazy all the time. If you're going to go and do something, like, I was eating a club sandwich, I was not down there taking shots, right? Like, everything is a business opportunity. And that's part of being confident too, is I could sit there, just sitting there talking to my little friend, the bartender. They're so sweet to me, and we're watching some basketball. Guy comes in, and we just immediately, I'm like, okay, get that proposal in. So that's part of being confident too, is honestly being confident enough to sit somewhere.
Yes.
And be open to the opportunity.
And you were prepared. You know, you were prepared to speak on your behalf, but you were also, you weren't compelled to. And there's a difference, because, we all know that person that's always speaking on their behalf, and it's like blah, blah, blah. Right. And so you were very discerning in that space to know I'm going to speak on my behalf. Yeah. And that's, that's not arrogance. That's confidence.
Yeah. It reminds me of when, I'm always that person that I don't believe in luck. I believe that hard work, preparation, and opportunity, when they all have moments that intersect, I mean, that's where things happen. So, you were prepared for that moment, and how to make the proper connection to bid on a piece of business.
What? Now, Jen, say that again. Hard work, preparation, and what?
Opportunity.
Yeah. That's good. All right, ladies, we're going to close this out in a few minutes. So what do you want people to know, Lisa?
Let me tell you two more things.
Oh, good.
This is going to sound like the opposite of what we just said.
Okay.
But I also believe that a confident woman knows when she's not the woman for the job.
Yes.
And I've had this, and it's kind of surprising to people, but I've had conversations in this, like, I speak a lot. And so I love speaking at women's events and things, and at churches and conferences. And I was being interviewed, so to speak, by somebody. And I just said after the conversation had gone on, I said, I don't think I'm your person. Mm-hmm. And it was a very large platform. And it took her so far back. And she said, I'm not used to people being, and I said, it's not that I'm not appreciative. Mm-hmm. I want what's best for your event. Yeah. And see, I can pass on that, and then I can work on what is me.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to be confident enough to be able to say, that's not me. I'm not the girl for the job.
And I think that goes with a lot of the work I do, which is developing that foundation. What's your, who's your target audience? What problem do you solve? And
so good.
What's your story that you're telling? Because I can look at it and go, listen, a piece of business I turned down was they really wanted a social media director to be part of it. I was like, I don't see a ton of value in social media. I don't. I'm not going to take your money and give you something that has no ROI. You can believe me or not believe me, but you're not going to get business off of Instagram. You're just not. You're too high level. And I could use some extra business right now. This is my slowest season, and it would have been a short-term project, and I could have turn and burn. But I knew my core values, who we are, what we do, and what we don't do. Because ultimately, guys, if you take a job that you're not meant for, you're only burning your own bridge because you're not.
Absolutely.
You're not. Like, I'm not going to give you what you want.
Yes.
And it's not going to work out. And that's bad energy to put out.
Yep. The last thing that I want to say today, and this serves for social media and politics and opinions. I think a confident woman, no, not you, Arden, you do this beautifully. You're not always as sure of everything as you think you are. And let me tell you what that means. There's certain things value-wise that we as women know exactly. Like, I'm sure about my faith. I'm sure about, the expression of my faith and all that. But when I look back at when I was 25 and what I was so darn sure about, and then when I was 40, wow, the other people were worth listening to. And now when I look at my age now and look back, when I look at before I was married and what I was so sure about marriage before I got married, can I get an amen? Now you're like, whew, not so sure about that anymore. Like the way I would raise my kids, so we have to be bold and courageous. And I know that just a confident woman can sit in disagreement with somebody and not feel that she has to prove something. We have the ability to listen to another opinion, even if we're like in our head, this is whacked, right? But you can listen to it. And, in the Christian world, we call that, don't take the bait.
Yeah.
A confident woman can sit quietly and let another person have the opinion. Now, that's not saying a confident woman also knows when to speak her mind, also knows when to draw a boundary. So I'm not saying any of that, but I just see this so much in the world that we live in that, like, slow your roll a little bit and just, either remove yourself from the conversation, or like my Aunt Kay used to do this. She used to nod and smile. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just need to nod and smile.
I will say there's a fine balance, because I do see so many people cowering now that I almost go, I have to check myself before I say anything. And I will also have conversations. Like, someone wrote back to me yesterday. It was like, hey, just wanted to clarify something with you, taking this offline. Like, he and I have great debates. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that for me, or whatever. And I see you always have 3 non-negotiables. So mine are, I'm going to talk about, and they've changed a little bit, my business, my faith and my business, and that Carolina is the best school ever created in the entire world. And here's the deal. It used to be my family was in there, and my family has said, don't put us out, which is completely and totally up to them. And I have to respect that. Yeah. I don't have to respect if you don't like Carolina. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding about that. But I always say, like, have a lighthearted thing in there. I do think we're at a point where you've just got to, I always say, what are you willing to lose business over?
Exactly. That's really wise.
Not all my clients are Christians. They all have some sort of faith. I don't always agree with their faith, but I do think people of faith work better with me because we talk about the supernatural world much easier. Yeah. And I think it's part of having those core values. So I think people are listening to this. Like, Lisa and I are in tandem a lot of the times, just coming at it from 2 different perspectives. But I would be remiss to say there are sometimes that we do have to be bold in what our statements are. And
I agree with that. But you also are a listener, which I love that about you. You're confident because you're not so sure. You're willing to listen to another opinion. So I see you living that out in your boldness for sure.
Thanks. I always say, I defend the First Amendment as much as so many people defend the Second Amendment. Like,
Hmm.
oh, real into that thing. It doesn't feel that valuable to me. But for me, I want to be able to say what I want to say.
Yeah.
And everyone has their thing. All right, Jen, what do you have to say? What's your reflection over there in Nash Vegas?
Well, I'll tell you, I again, not knowing I was going to be speaking on this, I was not prepared for anything, but one thing I think about in being bold and staying true to what your values are, like professionally, I just let a speaker go 2 weeks ago. And I let this person go less than 24 hours before our event was starting. And this was a contract I had signed 17 months before the event. And it was our 20th anniversary. And this was a huge, huge event for us. And some information had got brought to me that I knew without a shadow of a doubt I had to never waver on doing the right thing. And I never even questioned what I was about to do. And I didn't have my solution figured out in that moment. But within less than 30 minutes, I had it figured out.
Yeah.
And, but I pulled the plug on someone, you know, and their agent was already in the air flying from Oregon to Charlotte. And I said, they can get right back on a plane and go back when they land. And I pulled the plug on something because I ethically didn't believe in some of the things they were trying to change.
Yeah. And that's that being sure about what you're sure about.
Yeah.
And it's also, Jen has built a reputation, guys, with her company that they trust her, right? Like if that had been her first year, they'd have been like, no, probably, you know, like you have to, that's the other thing is with age comes trust.
Yeah.
And you know, the 20-year-olds that were out there saying you want $100,000 right now, you haven't built that. Like you haven't built that trust. And we encourage you, because I remember being the same way. Like I thought I knew everything. And in my gut, there were things that I knew that I'm still applying to this day. But trust, unfortunately, has to be earned. And fortunately and unfortunately, and they could trust her to go, what she says goes. I have clients now that'll just go, whatever she says, do it. But it took me building trust and having honest conversations as well. And all right. So Lisa, how can they find you?
LJAllenCoaching.com. And I have some information up there for anybody interested in coaching. I'd love to talk to you, and also on speaking.
All right. And Jen, do you want to tell them how they can find you?
Oh, absolutely. Hood Harget Breakfast Club is the organization that I'm with in Charlotte. And so they can find me on our website, which is hoodhargetbreakfastclub.com.
I love it. And guys, I'm Arden with Definita, definitapublicity.com. If you need PR coaching, if you need a PR representative, if you find yourself in crisis because you have made bad decisions and you need it fixed, I will fix it. Unless you're a schmo, and then I will let you hang.
I love you,
Don't be
Arden.
a jerk, guys. Don't be a jerk. All right. So thanks for watching. And this will be up later today or tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.